Hello everyone, it's time to address the Gholdengo controversy. Since the first week of SVOU, many have wanted Gholdengo banned. In this video, I'll explain what makes Gholdengo so good, the pro-ban argument, and the anti-ban argument. First, let's get some background info. Gholdengo is an exceptional Pokemon in competitive play. Ghost plus Steel is a rare type that is fantastic defensively and offensively. With solid stats all around and an incredible signature move Make It Rain, a 120 base power special attack, Gholdengo was instantly identified as a top-level threat. It's been considered an S tier in SVOU since the first week. Gholdengo can also run many sets. The main four are Nasty Plot, Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, and Defensive, but even within these four, Gholdengo is extremely customizable. It has a ton of coverage, and it uses lots of items such as Air Balloon, Custat Berry, Colbur Berry, Shucca Berry, Leftovers, Rocky Helmet, and more. But it's not Gholdengo's incredible stats, move pool, or set variety that makes it arguably broken. The argument surrounding a Gholdengo ban is based entirely on Gholdengo's ability. Good as Gold. Good as Gold blocks all status moves from being used against Gholdengo. Thunder Wave won't paralyze, Will-O-Wisp won't burn, Leech Seed won't grow, and a lot more. Non-attacking moves that don't directly affect Gholdengo are not blocked, though. Stealth Rock and other entry hazards can still be set up, for example. Now, this is a great ability, but in many ways it seems like just a worse magic bounce. What makes Good as Gold so unique is that it blocks one move that no other ability has ever been able to block: Defog. Before Good as Gold, there were only three ways to stop Defog from being used: outspeed and taunt the Pokemon using Defog, outspeed and KO Pokemon using Defog, or sack one of your own Pokemon, usually to entry hazards, so there was no target to Defog on. All of these are quite difficult to do and very circumstantial. Before Gholdengo, if you had a Defogger, your opponent simply wasn't going to be able to stack hazards against your team. If you wanted to, you were going to remove hazards. Now, you could pressure the Defogger, and a hazard stack team could still win against a team that had a Defog user, but it was a lot more difficult to prevent Defog before Gholdengo. There are also other ways people would punish Defog back in the day. Sticky Web teams in previous generations would always run Defiant or competitive Pokemon. But still, blocking Defog outright is generally much better for a hazard stack team, even than getting a 2x attack or special attack boost one time. Being able to completely block Defog changed the hazard game completely. Other forms of hazard control do exist, such as Rapid Spin, Mortal Spin, Tidy Up, and Court Change, but these have great limitations. Rapid Spin is the best distributed of these three, most notably possessed by Great Tusk and Iron Treads. While these two are considered solid removal by Gen 9 standards, they have nothing on Defoggers of past generations. Rapid Spin can be blocked by any of the OU viable ghost types: Pecharunt, Sinistcha, Dragapult, and Gholdengo, and Mortal Spin, Glamora's signature move, can be blocked by Steel types, and Glamora's middling speed tier and abundant weaknesses make it a very poor form of hazard control. Now, Tidy Up is a fantastic move that acts like Dragon Dance while also removing hazards, but the problem here is distribution. Tidy Up was only given to Mousehold, Cinccino, and Furret, none of which can easily fit onto OU teams. Lastly, Court Change, Cinderace's signature move. While this is a solid option, Cinderace invites in many hazard setters such as Gliscor, Tinglu, Great Tusk, Glamora, and Hisuian Samurott. If you click Court Change, your opponent has a good opportunity to just reset hazards, and hazard stack teams are built to function well when hazards are on both sides. Defog was the only really reliable form of removal, but with Gholdengo in the tier, this isn't a real option. Defog is only on about 6% of OU teams, many of which are stall builds utilizing Defog Corviknight. Some of you watching may be thinking, wow, only 6%? Why so low? Why aren't more things running Defog? It's not like Gholdengo's on every team, right? Well, you'd be correct. Gholdengo is currently at 24% usage, which is high, but if you bring a Defog Pokemon, there's still a 76% chance you'll be able to click Defog without interference. The problem is consistency. This is a very important concept to understand. In competitive Pokemon, consistency counts for a lot. For example, Rain in SVOU is inconsistent thanks to Ogerpon Wellspring. Wellspring is at 21% usage right now, meaning almost 80% of the time, Rain will not encounter one. But having a terrible matchup 1 in 5 games is really bad, so Rain gets almost no usage. Similarly, if a Defog team is built relying on that removal, you won't be able to remove 1 in 4 games, greatly increasing the loss rate of the team. Furthermore, Gholdengo's 24% usage is actually worse than it seems for Defoggers. Gholdengo is most commonly placed on builds that run Spikes and Stealth Rock, so the times where you'll want removal most are the times when you're most likely to be blocked by a Gholdengo. So this begs the question, without Defog, what is the reliable way to remove hazards in OU? What's the way you can count on? Well, there isn't one. All good ban arguments for Gholdengo revolve around it blocking Defog and the effect that it's had on the metagame. Gholdengo itself is not a broken Pokemon. Very few would argue this. But it has had an impact that many consider to be deeply unhealthy, to the extent that a ban is deserved. Hazard Stack, the archetype that focuses on setting Stealth Rock and Spikes to deal residual damage, is very popular in SVOU right now. Hazard staples like Ting Lu is on 20% of teams, Gliscor is on 13% of teams, and Hisuian Samurott is on 12% of teams. Heavy-duty boots are also one of the most common items in the game, even on non-hazard stacking teams, just to prepare for when they do face hazard stack. Many hazard stack teams have topped the ladder and seen fantastic tournament results. Without a doubt, it's a top-level archetype. These teams benefit greatly from Gholdengo's presence, even if they don't run Gholdengo. Many hazard stack teams have taken to using spin blockers like Sinistcha and Pecharunt, and they have no countermeasures for Defog. Despite this, these teams are quite consistent, thanks to Defog usage being very, very low, presumably thanks to Gholdengo. Many dislike the dominance of hazard stack teams and believe that they're too powerful, and the pro-ban argument would state, ultimately, Gholdengo is to blame, even if it's only used on about a third of hazard stack teams. So how would the anti-ban crowd respond to this argument? The most common argument I see is that Defog's fall from usage isn't Gholdengo's fault at all, but rather due to poor Defog distribution. There is some truth to this. A lot of Pokemon lost Defog in Gen 9 that had it in the past. Gliscor, Landorus, Moltres, Dragonite, and Zapdos used to have Defog, but no longer do, and those are just the examples from OU. In Natdex OU, a similar format where no move pool deletions occurred, Gliscor, Moltres, and Landorus are all popular defoggers that can pressure Gholdengo. This may seem like case closed. The anti-ban people are right, and distribution is the real issue. But that's not quite true. The popularity of Defog in Natdex only proves that if Gliscor, Moltres, and Landorus still had Defog, they would probably use it. It does not prove that Gholdengo isn't at fault for Defog not being used in SVOU. I believe that Defog usage would increase significantly if Gholdengo were banned, both from increased Corviknight usage and from many more niche defoggers. Before I get into what those would be, please remember to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Or else, I'll hack into Pokemon Showdown and make good as gold block attacks as well. Now, what niche defoggers do I think would be viable? Mandibuzz, Scizor, Galarian Weezing, Frostmoth, Hisuian Decidueye, and Talonflame would all see usage as defoggers if Gholdengo was banned. Mandibuzz, although not a fantastic defogger, would certainly be usable if it could consistently remove. With moves like Knockoff, Foul Play, Toxic, and U-Turn, and the extremely valuable Ghost Resist, it would be a solid utility Pokemon. Scizor with heavy-duty boots would also be a great way to remove hazards. Even without Roost, it would be a solid offensive pivot that could remove hazards once or twice for more offensive teams. Galarian Weezing can already remove hazards consistently with Neutralizing Gas, which has given it a niche in OU, but if Levitate sets could remove hazards as well, Weezing usage would skyrocket. Levitate allows Weezing to wall threats like Great Tusk, Dragonite, Gliscor, Ting Lu, Landorus, and more. Weezing has to choose between consistently defogging and having that incredible ground immunity, but if Gholdengo were gone, it could have its cake and eat it too. Frostmoth, crazy as it seems, would probably be a solid defogger. With the insane ability Ice Scales to double special defense, Frostmoth would confidently switch into Darkrai, Enamorus, Kyurem, Raging Bolt, and Primarina, all while being able to slow U-turn out and paralyze Pokemon with Stun Spore. Hisuian Decidueye is a bit of a more niche option, but it switches in well to Kingambit and Hisuian Samurott, and gets fantastic utility moves like Knockoff, U-turn, Roost, and Triple Arrows, a 90 base power signature fighting type move that always lowers defense when it hits. Talonflame would still be largely outclassed by Moltres, but having Defog would make it a real option for some teams when running a Flame Body set. It confidently blocks Stealth Rock from Great Tusk and Iron Treads, but it does struggle to remove against most other Stealth Rock setters. So, as to whether or not Gholdengo is to blame for Defog having so little usage, the pro-ban argument has the stronger case here. Based on my experience with SVOU and other metagames, I strongly believe that Gholdengo is to blame for the lack of defog usage and the subsequent dominance of hazards and heavy-duty boots. However, I believe there are two stronger arguments against banning Gholdengo. The first is that Hazard Stack being better isn't a problem at all. Hazard Stack isn't the only dominant archetype in the metagame, and most don't even consider it to be the best archetype. Bulky offense and offense teams that aren't based on hazard stacking are extremely strong, as are some forms of hyper offense. Does Gholdengo's presence make hazard stacking better and more consistent? Absolutely. But if hazard stack isn't even considered the best archetype, why is that a problem? Isn't making an archetype better and more consistent a good thing, unless that archetype becomes overwhelming? Some would say that hazard stack being as strong as it is isn't healthy, but others would see it as a valid archetype like any other. The second argument against banning Gholdengo is that it helps out a lot in the team builder. As I said earlier, Gholdengo can run a lot of sets. Defensive, Scarf, Specs, Nasty Plot, all kinds of coverage. If your team has a problem, there's a good chance Gholdengo can help. If you need an answer with Zamazenta, a defensive Gholdengo can help. If you're struggling with Stall, a Nasty Plot or Choice Spec set with Psyshock can help. If your team needs a Fairy Resist and Speed Control, you've got the Choice Scarf option. Every archetype, from Stall to Hyper Offense, frequently utilizes Gholdengo. This is a very rare distinction. Banning Gholdengo would certainly lead to more Pokemon being viable, most obviously a lot of lower tier defoggers. But these Pokemon would do the same thing every time. Frostmoth, Mandibuzz, Talonflame, Weezing, all of these Pokemon would basically do the same thing, with very little variation. Is one Pokemon with a lot of viable sets worth trading for many Pokemon with a few or just one viable set? That's a very subjective question without any easy answers. In summary, the argument for banning Gholdengo is that it makes the tier worse by making defog and defog users unviable, thus strengthening hazard stack to unhealthy levels and forcing a ton of Pokemon to run heavy-duty boots. The argument against banning Gholdengo is that while it does make hazard stack better and more consistent, this isn't a problem since hazard stack isn't oppressive, and Gholdengo is healthy due to how many options it gives team builders. What do you think? Ban or no ban? Let me know in the comments section below. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time.